A quiet exterior, always smiling. A woman at the helm makes a difference. I invite the Chief Librarian and Information Officer of the Anna Centenary Library to give the welcome address.
Good evening. On behalf of Directorate of Public Libraries, Anna Centenary Library, I welcome our chief guest, Mr. ANIL SWARUP IAS, and also all other guests, those who are coming here and motivating us for this talk. Mr. ANIL SWARUP, with a distinguished career spanning 38 years, ANIL SWARUP sir has exemplified the spirit of making changes happen. Born in Allahabad, Uttar Pradesh, he earned a master's degree in political science from Allahabad University in 1978, receiving the Chancellor's Gold Medal as part of the all-round student. His journey began in the Indian Police Service before he joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1981, where he excelled, winning the Director's Gold Medal at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. Throughout his tenure, Swarup had pivotal roles at both the state and central government levels, notably serving as secretary in the Ministry of Coal during the coal scam crisis. His commitment to educational reform shone through in his role as Secretary of School Education and Literacy, where he championed public-private partnership to enhance school quality. A strategic thinker and innovative leader, Swarup has been recognized multiple times by the Economics Times as a policy change agent and featured as one of India's today's 35 action heroes. He is the founder chairman of the Nexus of Good, Inspiring Societal Change, and the author of the bestseller, Not Just a Civil Servant. His contributions continue to resonate, shaping the bright future for ceremony. Thank you so much for accepting our invitations and giving your consent for this talk, and also welcome the audience and ACE Innovation team and ACL team and technical teams. Thank you.
Today is special because we have a whole group of very special people here with us today. People who made India what she is today, our administrative officers. There are so many of them, all of them sitting on the front row. Many of them we know, many of them we've seen their work, we've been inspired by them, and we've learned so much from them. And it's time to say thank you. Thank you for doing so much for us. Thank you for being here. One idea, one thought, one insight, one revelation, one intervention, one experience, one incident. That's all that is required. That's the power of one. And today you will find that one here in our midst. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is NEP 20 today, thank our chief guest of today. No exaggeration. If still 1 billion people have access to school education in India today, thank one of its early architects of the educational revolution. What water can do, gasoline cannot. What copper can do, gold cannot. What the fragility of the ant enables it to move. The rigidity of the tree enables it to stay rooted. Everything and everybody has been designed with a proportion of uniqueness to serve a purpose. He is here to be he, an Indian, a civil servant, a treasured masterpiece. The purpose of governance is not merely to come up with great ideas and plans, but to make things happen on the ground as well. During his career spanning 38 years, Mr. ANIL SWARUP attempted to make it happen. Born in Allahabad, UP, he earned his master's degree in political science from the Allahabad University in 1978, where he was also awarded the Chancellor's Gold Medal for being the best all-round student. The sense of service to one's fellow man was ingrained in him early. He served the Indian Police Service for a year, then stepped into IAS in 1981. Molded and chiseled at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, this out-of-the-box thinker bagged the Director's Gold Medal for the Best Officer Trainee. He threw his head, heart, and hands into serving India. Held various assignments within the state of Uttar Pradesh and the central government. This change maker served as Secretary to Government of India in the Ministry of Coal, where he handled the aftermath of the coal scam. Therefore, and thereafter, he served as Secretary School Education and Literacy, where he attempted to foster public-private partnerships to improve the quality of school education. A strategic thinker, innovator, and Mr. Clean donned many hats. Accolades many. That was and he was nominated as one of the policy change agents by the Economic Times for 4 years, 2010, 2012, 2015, 2016. He was selected as one of the 35 action heroes in India Today's annual edition. Consistency is the hallmark of greatness. Anyone can perform an occasional act of greatness. Truly great are those who can consistently perform acts of greatness. Author par excellence, his books, which are outside and which you can buy, and it's a must read. Not just a civil servant, ethical dilemmas of a civil servant, etc., record the travails and tribulations of a civil servant as decision makers and an internal observer of the system. His books are deeply personal, reckoning of a man who attempted to make things happen with hope to inspire others to do the same. A man who would make anybody's list of greatest and nicest bureaucrats India has seen. Dream we must, that all of us know. But all great dreamers dream great dreams, not necessarily during the best of times, but during the toughest of times. Independent of the circumstances, dream they did, and on the sheer strength of their dreams, organizations, states, nations, and humanity stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, let us stand up for this bureaucrat par excellence, a man who has set benchmarks across all the portfolios he's touched. He's made a difference, still making a difference. The face, the force, and the vision behind today's NEP 2020. His is a story to be told. Mr. ANIL SWARUP, IAS retired, former Education Secretary to Government of India. Sir, we are all tuned in. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much for those very kind words. It's very humbling. My young friends and not so young friends, I leave it to you to decide where you belong. It's been an amazing journey as a civil servant, but what I'm going to talk about is how to make things happen in the government and otherwise. And it will be at two levels. One at an individual level, that is at a micro level, and the other at the policy level. It was during my career when I visited many locations that I discovered how individuals were making a difference, and they were very inspirational. But I must tell you one story, which came much later in my career. When I took over as Secretary School Education, before that I was Coal Secretary, I was under the impression that I was coming out of the dark dungeons of coal mines to the bright lights of school education. And to my utmost horror, I found that the mafias of school education were much worse than the mafias of coal. In coal, all the mining was underground and the mafias were overground. In education, all the mafias are underground, eating into the essentials in the Indian society. And since I was arguably the most uneducated, illiterate civil servant to be posted as Secretary Education, Coal, Government of India, there were many sympathizers, there were many advisors. I used to call them Rai Sahab, some of them coming from across the Atlantic to the cool climes of India during December. And I remember one such Rai Sahab coming and telling me about how education should be handled here. And he was giving the examples of England, Finland, Holland, Scotland, all lands of the world. And I asked him, have you visited motherland? He didn't understand to begin with. But then I moved around the country. I traveled to about 23 states in the first 3 months as School Education Secretary and discovered the wonderful work that is being done, including the state of Tamil Nadu, which I traveled, and I saw some wonderful, wonderful work being done. But one incident is etched in my memory. I was told that a school in Maharashtra did not have electricity, which surprised me a bit. So I decided to visit that school. This is in a place called Pastepada, 150 kilometers north of Thane district. 2-room primary school, government primary school. So when I visited there, the teacher, Sandeep Gund, came to receive me. And as I walked into that room, I found that every child had a tablet and there was a smart screen. So my first question to this teacher was, how did you get the electricity here? How are you running these? So he took me around those 2 rooms and showed me a foldable solar panel which he had fabricated. And he was charging batteries through those solar panels, and through batteries he was charging these tablets. The next question was, where did you get the money to buy these tablets? Because government doesn't provide that money. So he narrated how it happened. He said that when he was posted here as a teacher, and it was a single teacher school, there were about 40-50 children, and many of them didn't come to the school. So this guy had a second-hand laptop, and the place where he stayed had some internet facility. So he used to download those educational videos, come to the school and play those videos. So all these children used to congregate around. this passion of the teacher was traveling around. So one day, a CSR funding agency and an NGO visited the school. And they were very impressed with the passion of this teacher. So the CSR funding agency decided to fund these tablets. So tablets and smart screen came. Around that time I was very impressed with Sandeep Gund. So I took a photograph of his and tweeted it. Suddenly Sandeep Gund becomes a local hero. Teachers from other schools started visiting the school. They started replicating in some way or the other. In between, I met the President of India, Mr. Kovind had just become the President of India. So as Secretary Government of India, I just had gone for a courtesy call. And while sipping a cup of tea, since we had some time, I narrated this story of Sandeep Gund to him. And he appeared visibly impressed. So I asked him, sir, would you like to meet him? He said, why not? So I invite Sandeep Gund over to Delhi. He meets the President of India, a photograph taken and tweeted. Suddenly Sandeep Gund becomes a national hero. But this is not the end of the story. The Pastepada model of digital schools has now been replicated in 50,000 schools of Maharashtra. Not a single penny coming from the government. 250 crores of rupees raised through crowdfunding. Now this gave me many ideas. One, of course, I had always believed there are individuals who can make things happen on the ground, irrespective of the set of circumstances. I had come to believe that you have no control whatsoever over a set of circumstances, but there are people who are doing phenomenal work. Can we seek inspiration from such people who are performing, and many of those performers, my batchmates, my colleagues sitting here, who are actually performers, they have demonstrated that you can make things happen. The question is whether we are looking at these performers. The question is whether we are learning from these performers. The question is whether we are learning from their failures and successes. We don't. We don't. Why? Because we are fond of masala. We love negativity. We thrive on negativity. You know, you start criticizing somebody, people will congregate around and contribute to that criticism. How about looking at the positive part of it? And that gave me an idea of what I now call the Nexus of Good, a foundation that was set up post my retirement, but the idea came before that, that if all the rascals and the ruffians of the world can come together and make life difficult for us, why shouldn't good people come together? Why should a good person fight his battle all alone? So get the people together, and this can only happen if you have this inkling of appreciating good work. Initially it's difficult because it's contrary to our natural inclination of criticizing people around. But if you do start appreciating good work around you, I can guarantee nothing can be better than that. It keeps you going. It has kept me going post-retirement. I've put in more than 6 years beyond retirement, and I'm thoroughly enjoying every moment because of the sheer goodness around. They've come together, and that's what Nexus Good is all about. This is about individuals, and there have been hundreds of individuals that I've come across who are doing wonderful, wonderful job and are inspiring many others. But let me look at a policy level, at the large level. You know, almost everyone blames the government for doing nothing. I mean, you go walk around and talk to anybody. They will be critical of the government. They will say, why shouldn't this be done? That should be done. And there is no dearth of ideas on how things to be made to be happen. You walk down the street and ask them how this should be done. They will tell you how it is done. It's very easy. Ideas are dime a dozen. For any problem you say, there will be ideas coming. But to make things happen in a democracy, and now listen to this carefully, for any idea to fructify and sustain, it has to be politically acceptable, socially desirable, technologically feasible, financially viable, administratively doable, judicially tenable, emotionally relatable, and environmentally sustainable. That's how tough it is to make things happen in the government. But the reason why I'm telling you this is not to dissuade anybody, especially the youngsters sitting here, for not doing anything. It is merely recognition of the ground reality. Because if you do understand and appreciate the ground reality, you'll work around it. There are many people who've done that. And that's the whole lesson. Let's start one by one and see, how do you make things politically acceptable? And my colleagues are sitting here, they've managed to convince the politicians on many occasions into believing in what they say. You know, my last book, Encounters with Politicians, is all about how do you negotiate with a politician. I come from a very difficult state of Uttar Pradesh where negotiating with politicians is very, very difficult. I'm told it's equally difficult here, but since I have not worked here, I can't compare. But in UP, it was very, very difficult. So when I came to Delhi, it was like baएं हाथ का खेल. It was very easy in Delhi. But in UP, it was very tough. It was not tough because of the politician. it was probably tough because I was not prepared to handle such politicians. In fact, I ended up fighting with almost every politician in the first few years of my career. Because I had this prejudice against this politician. I did not understand the politician. It was gradually that I started understanding the politician. And when I did understand the politician, I realized how to get the best out of this gentleman called politician. And it helped me enormously. So the problem was with me, not with the politician, simply because politicians are what they are. You can't do a nut to them. Trying to change them is a futile exercise. Why indulge in that? How can you look at it? And how I looked at it was like this. That here is a politician who has his limitations. But almost every politician wants some performance. So sometimes we believe that I am the only honest man around and all the politicians are corrupt. That's what I believed to begin with, that every politician who came to me was corrupt. It was when I worked with Mr. Kalyan Singh, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, that I realized politicians can also be very, very good. He indeed was. And then I also realized that even bad politicians can partly be good. Can I leverage that? Can I understand him? Can I understand his limitations? Can I tell him this is right, this is wrong? People ask me that you held very sensitive assignments, including Secretary Cole, Government of India. Didn't you face any political pressure? I told them, after say 12 to 13 years of my initial career, thereafter I don't recall any politician telling me to do anything wrong. None of them, because they knew I wouldn't do it. But that's not where it ends, because you can't do only by being honest. You know, one of the chapters in my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, is honesty alone is not enough. I think a civil servant has to be efficient. So if you're efficient, if you're communicative, the chances are that you'll be able to convince politicians. I have not counted it, but I think 90% of the cases, even a difficult state like UP, one was able to convince the minister into believing in what you wanted them to believe. Let me give you a few examples. I was Director Information and Public Relations in Government of UP, and the job of Director Information and Public Relations was to manage the media, very tough job. And those were the difficult times of Babri Masjid period, where it was not very easy to manage politicians, but that apart. My other job was to every morning go to the Chief Minister, show him the paper clippings and seek his response to respond to those news items. On this particular day when I reached his residence, the Chief Secretary and DGP were standing there, and there was the Chief Minister, for a change, looked a bit upset. 7 meetings, public meetings had been organized for a by-election in a place called Etawah. And he was not well, so he was saying that please cancel the last 2 meetings because I can't do 7 meetings. And both the Chief Secretary and the DGP were nodding their heads. "Haan sir, you're not well, you won't be able to do it." I had just been district magistrate, so I couldn't keep myself. I couldn't hold myself. So I said, "Sir, a few days ago I was collector and district magistrate, and when Chief Minister comes to this district, there's a lot of preparation done and people have a lot of expectations. So sir, even if you go for 5 minutes, you don't speak. Your throat is not good, you don't speak, but go there. Don't cancel it." So he looked at me. "Can I go?" So the moment he said, "Can I go?" the Chief Secretary started nudging me to keep quiet. I didn't. I said, "Sir, it's just my opinion, sir. You have to take a call." The Chief Secretary again kept nudging me. Then there was a pin drop silence for 15 seconds. Thereafter, the Chief Minister once again turns towards me and says, "Anil ji, I think you are right." The moment he said that, the Chief Secretary put his elbow down and said, "Haan sir, he's absolutely right." Now, I had clean forgotten this. I had forgotten this incident. It was later when Kalyan Singh became the Chief Minister once again that he rang me up, "Anil, you had not come to meet me. Others have." He was a bit annoyed. So I said, "I thought you would be very busy right now. I'll come later on." No, you come down. So I went to his room. The moment I entered his room, he looks up at me and tells me, "Anil, I want you to be my secretary." I said, "Fine, sir. You won't ask me why I've chosen you as my secretary." I said, "Sir, you must have taken a call. You must have thought over it." No, sit down, I'll tell you." And then what he tells me, "You remember this?" He had remembered the Chief Secretary nudging me and me blurting out. Now, this is one of the many incidents that I've narrated where I found there are politicians who would probably, they have their limitations, but they're very good. Many of them are very honest as well. And they belong to all political parties, not one particular party. The question is whether I'm able to communicate a political value to the person in a particular situation. And many of us don't do that. So, youngsters who are sitting here, when I say politician, it could be your boss actually. to be a non-politician. If you want to make things happen, you better have the boss on your side. More often than not, you'll succeed. In some cases you won't, doesn't matter. But your job is to see how you can convince your boss into believing what you want him to believe. And that's what, in our case, as policymakers, when we were as secretaries to Government of India, or even at other senior positions, secretaries in the state government also, you had to negotiate with the politician. So you have to make the idea politically acceptable for it to sustain over a period of time. If you didn't do that, then there will be trouble. There are many, many such examples where you could actually couch your idea or your proposition in a manner that it becomes acceptable. I remember in the beginning of my career, if I disagreed with a politician, I used to start by disagreeing with him. It was gradually that I realized, don't start with a disagreement. And I remember when Mr. Modi became the Prime Minister of the country, I was picked up as Coal Secretary. So in the first meeting with him, the Power Secretary had made a presentation wherein all the 6 slides that he presented, he said the problem of power is on account of coal, the problem is power on account of coal. After 6 slides, it was only coal's problem, not power problem. So then the Prime Minister turns towards me, Anil ji, aapne dekha, did you see? If you solve the problem of coal, the economy of the country will improve. That was his statement. He made it in Hindi. Aap coal ki vyavastha theek kar dijiye, desh ki arthik sthiti sudhar jayegi. This is what he said. So I mean, had I been Anil Swarup, younger Anil Swarup, I would have said, no, sir. I said, yes, sir, I agree with you. I started with that and I totally disagreed with him. I said, sir, power problem ki, one of the problems could be coal. But to say that coal is singularly responsible for all the power problems is wrong, because you have to look at it comprehensively. Now, here is the Prime Minister who I was meeting for the first time, and he agrees with me. And then he turns towards my minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, and says, Anil ji is right. You have to look at the problem comprehensively. Now that solved a huge problem for me. Why? Because Piyush Goyal then became, he had this misapprehension that I was close to the Prime Minister. And thereafter 2 years, I had a very smooth sailing in the coal sector, because he never overruled me, Piyush Goyal. Never ever overruled. And then when I became Education Secretary, I get a call from the Principal Secretary to Prime Minister. I'm telling you how couching of language matters in case of getting it political acceptability. I get a call from Principal Secretary to Prime Minister. He says, Anil, can you come over in the evening and brief the Prime Minister about health insurance? I said, sir, what have I to do with health insurance? I'm Secretary of Education. He said, no, we are trying to convince the Prime Minister into taking on this health insurance. And every time we broach the issue of health insurance, he says, all insurance people are chores. Tirudan. All insurance. Okay. Tirudan, there is a different story to it. I'll narrate it later on if time permits. Okay. So I said, sir, if he already has made up his mind, what can I do? No, you did an insurance scheme, we did very well. So why don't you come and explain to him? Then I said, what is my locus standi? He said, okay, today we have the health review. We'll keep education review along with it. You come here, if the Prime Minister asks you, you tell him. So I went there in the evening, 7 o'clock, Racecourse Road, 8 of us sitting there around a table. And the Health Secretary makes a presentation on health insurance. And after the presentation is over, the comment from Prime Minister was, Pata nahi aap log kyun insurance walon ki himayati kar rahe? Why are you pushing insurance people? They are all chores, tirudans. And then he turns towards me. Anil ji, what is your view? I had exactly the same view as Health Secretary. But I couched it differently. I spoke for 15 minutes on health insurance and the necessity of health insurance. He listened to me 15 minutes without interrupting me. After I had completed, he said, I think, Anil ji, you are right. We should have health insurance. And then that day, Ayushman Bharat was actually born. Because the government had dumped RSPY, and on that day he realized that this is right. It should happen, and Ayushman Bharat is out. And the interesting feature was, as I was walking out of the room, one Joint Secretary in the PMO asked me, sir, you were aware that he gets annoyed on health insurance, but yet you stated your point. I said, yaar, I don't need anything from him now, nor anything after retirement. I said what I had to say, whether he liked it or not, his outlook. Now, I don't think you have to take that approach. But my suggestion to youngsters sitting here is, if you can speak your mind out and couch it in a language that you're not offensive, but you are able to convey an idea in a manner that the person, it's a normal marketing strategy, marketing of an idea. How do you market an idea to anybody? And the key here is, what is the value proposition that you are conveying to the individual, whoever that individual is? I did that as coal secretary because coal existed in all opposition ruled states. West Bengal, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, all opposition ruled states. And all of these were firing salvos at the central government. How do you get these politicians to do it? So you have again to think in terms of couching that language. I'm telling you all this is not merely in the context of political acceptability, but acceptance by any decision maker. In our case, it was politician. So an idea to fructify has to be politically acceptable. Then it has to be socially desirable. What do you mean by socially desirable? Socially desirability means that you have to take into account stakeholders. If you don't understand the ultimate consumer of idea or product, then whatever idea or product that you prepare, it will not travel distance. So you have to understand that person very well. You know, in Government of India at least, state government also on occasions, suddenly a politician will have an idea and say he'll do it, without understanding whether that is the real requirement there. What is the clientele? What does the clientele want? No, because I have an idea, implement it. It happened on a few occasions. But then you have again to work out, when you formulate that scheme, whatever you do, you have to account for the people there, because unless the stakeholders are taken into confidence, the chances are that your scheme will not flourish. All those schemes that have worked are those where you have taken the clientele into confidence. Then the third is, it has to be technologically feasible. Now technology is growing by the day. And here, I recently wrote an article that the problem in government, to my mind, is not so much of technology, because everyone is talking about artificial intelligence these days. To me, more important is attitudinal intelligence. Technology will come. You know, there is a huge debate going on in the government today about whether bureaucrats should be specialists. And I say it's all nonsense, absolutely. The day bureaucrats become specialists, they're going to fight with specialists, because they will never become specialists. There will be a desire to become specialists, they will never become. As against that, if you have the right attitude, then you'll give space to the specialists to work. You won't fight with them. So to me, attitude is more important. But coming to the technology part, as technology is evolving, one has to be very careful about which technology we are using. I distinctly remember the same advisor who would come to advise me about Finland and Scotland and all other places, had also suggested, since you are short of teachers, this I'm talking of 2016, why don't you set up smart screens in every school and webcast a lecture from Delhi? So I told him, you haven't traveled to the interior areas, I have. There are many areas where you do not have internet. Of course, things have changed now. At that point in time, that technology may have been feasible elsewhere, but it was not feasible here. I'm giving this, an absurd example, so to say, just to illustrate that mere use of technology is not going to work. It has to be a feasible technology. To me, the most important part is the financial viability. In my part of the world, in UP, they say, "Jeb mein nahi patta chal diya Kolkata." Unless you have requisite funds to run a scheme, how would that scheme run? You have to have money. And in the context of national education policy, she attributed this policy to me. I had no role to play whatsoever. In fact, when Dr. Kasturi Rangan came to meet me, asking me about my views on education policy, I told him, "You are wasting your time." He was shocked. He said, "You all have set up this group and you are telling me you're wasting your time." I said, "You will come up with a lovely policy indeed. The new national education policy is one of the finest policies that I have seen. Wonderful, wonderful policies, and that is the reason why it may not be implemented. It's so good. Because unless you have the desired money, the national education policy says that we should have 6.1% of GDP allocated to education for it to work. In my personal experience as Secretary of School Education, the actual allocation to school education from 2014 to 2017 came down in nominal terms. In real terms, it was disastrous. And even now, the maximum allocation to education has been 3.1%. So where is the money? You may have greatest of ideas if you don't have the money to drive it. But if you have a good idea, and this is to youngsters sitting here, and if you are able to demonstrate the efficacy of your idea, if you can demonstrate that it works on the ground, then money will flow, money will follow. There is no dearth of money for good ideas, but just ideas won't work. You have to make the ideas work, at least on some small scale, for money to come in. I gave you the example of Pastepada, where that idea which worked in a village school is now working in more than 50,000 schools. That idea did not have money to begin with, but later on money came in. So you can make the idea financially viable. The next one is, it has to be administratively doable. Now what does that mean? Sometimes you may have money, but you don't have the human resources to do it. Medical health is a primary example where money is there, but you don't have, I don't know about Tamil Nadu, but countrywide there's a shortage of doctors, there's a shortage of paramedical stuff. You don't work on that, you just give money, you put up infrastructure, the hospitals don't work, the primary medical centers don't work, you have to have human resources, so that needs to be planned. Then you come to a very tricky area where I also failed on a number of occasions, that is judicially tenable. Of course, any idea has to be judicially tenable, but I mean, I hope there's nobody from judiciary sitting here and no one will go to the court tomorrow for contempt against me, because what I'm going to say now could be matter of contempt. You know, I can't visualize any other country in the world where a Supreme Court judge holds a press conference against the Chief Justice and gets away with it. He holds a press conference, criticizes the Chief Justice, and not only that, he becomes himself Chief Justice of India. And then there is a sexual harassment case against him, and in that case there is a compromise. How can there be a compromise in sexual harassment case? Either the lady was wrong or the judge was wrong. Both can't be right, both can't be wrong. But there is a compromise, and then he becomes members of parliament. Now, in such a scenario, when it's so uncertain how judiciary is going to interact, if people ask me, where did you fail in your entire career? I said, this is one thing which I could never understand. The judicial part, why did this, I mean, if time permitting and if I'm provided immunity, I can write a book on contempt cases against me. I had so many contempt cases. In one case, there were two opposing orders from High Court, and either way I would have been held for contempt. If I did it, it would be contempt of this order. If I didn't do it, so I did it. So I appeared before the court. So the standing counsel who later on became Chief Justice of High Court, he was standing counsel then. So the judge there, when my standing counsel started speaking, he said, Mr. Counsel, you sit down, or you just keep standing, don't counsel, let him speak. So I spoke. Because he couldn't speak, became Chief Justice of a particular High Court. Then I pleaded with them. I said, my lord, I had two orders. In one I had to do, in other I didn't have to do. Either way I would have been held of contempt. Since I'm a young officer, I did it. Had I been an old officer, I wouldn't have done it. In either case, I would have been held in contempt. Of course, it discharged the contempt. There's some funniest of cases that I've come across. So, this is one area where I failed. Maybe later in life, I'll learn more about it. Then we come to emotional relatability. Now, this is very important. It came in the context, this point came in the context of farms law. Personally speaking, I thought farms laws were brilliant. A few things here and there may have gone wrong, but by and large, they were for the benefit of the farmer. Now, what is the difference between emotional relatability and social desirability? Social desirability is when you formulate a policy, you consider the aspects of your target group and incorporate in the policy. Emotional relatability is your ability to convey the value proposition to the clientele. Now, in case of Farmers' Bill, I don't think that was done. Had they conveyed it appropriately to those people and told them how beneficial that those farms laws were, I think farms laws would not have been withdrawn. The speed with which they were pushed through in the parliament did a lot of damage. So it has to be it has to be emotionally relatable. And finally, of course, everyone knows about the environmental sustainability. I think without that, nothing will happen. But here again, a word of caution. And like in case of power sector, I handled coal. Everyone was going gaga over solar energy, and now we have run into problems with solar energy. So we have to be very cautious about how we provide solutions. So again, for any idea to fructify, if you want to make things happen in the government in a sustained manner, it has to be politically acceptable, socially desirable, technologically feasible, financially viable, administratively doable, judicially tenable, emotionally relatable, and environmentally sustainable. It's important to keep these in mind. And all the youngsters sitting here, this is not to dissuade you from taking action. This is not to tell you that things can't happen in the government, because things are happening in the government. The key is whether we are trying to understand the things that are happening, take lessons from them, and move forward. So, since I was given 20 minutes to speak, I think I have overshot that time. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a pleasure being here.
That was discipline at its best. Thank you so very much, sir. Believe, behave, become. I read somewhere and understand today how to make the government work. Extraordinary. Yes, an extraordinary person who did everything with extraordinary passion. Passion for a cause, passion to make life count, passion to stand up for something that unfolds legendary possibilities that separate a history reader from a history maker. you have shown today that giving that extra in everything and anything makes all the difference. Thank you so very much, Anil sir. You have actually, this was an eye-opener of a talk. Thank you so very much. It's not the answers that enlighten, but the questions, said Eugene Lorenzo. Questions are what makes us think, grow, challenge our beliefs. They have the power to open our minds, to have the power to open our minds to countless possibilities, inspiring us to explore, learn, and push ourselves further. And we don't get a second chance to question a former Union Secretary to Government of India. So utilize that chance. 15 minutes of question time, 5 questions, some basic rules, first come, first serve questions. Please ask questions which are, I have the power to say no to some questions, so don't get upset if I do say no. Questions can be asked to Mr. Anil Swarup, sir. We can start now.
Hello sir, I'm Nivedita. I'm a UPSC aspirant. The more I study to become a civil servant, the more I couldn't wait to become a civil servant. So, but I have to be patient, and perseverance is important in this path. What can an UPSC aspirant, contribute to the society while I'm on this path before becoming an IAS? Because I can't wait to serve.
My suggestion to you would be forget about the society for now. Forget about
Yes,
there are too many people sitting in Delhi talking about nation and its welfare.
Yes,
You become selfish. Become a person to be reckoned with, and then people will listen to you. Right now, focus on yourself. Do what you got to do in life. Become a good citizen of this country, and then you'll be able to contribute to the society. Almost everyone is thinking about the country. And the people who are the most nationalists send their children abroad to become citizens of other country. So don't worry about that. There are many people who are worrying about it. You worry about yourself, all youngsters.
yes.
Don't worry about anybody else. Become selfish. Become a citizen to be reckoned with. Contribute to the national wealth by your own doings. Forget about others. Be totally focused on what you want to achieve. Become a civil servant. That's one way of doing it. I've written my book, last chapter is, if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IAS officer all over. And people ask me why. I said there's no better service than serving yourself and serving others. And of course, if you know the hierarchy, I jokingly say that there's no other service in the world where you go to the top, become Secretary Government of India if you're efficient, and you go to the topmost, that is become Cabinet Secretary of India, you have a chance to become that if you're inefficient. So all options are available to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Hello, sir. I'm Harinath. And my question is, even if it's a idea or scheme that is implemented by government, the government has to face financial or funding problems also. So it can actually affect the even good schemes and which also serve for people. So it affects the scheme for long term, right? So how the government has to manage both financially as well as the schemes or ideas?
First of all, I think when any idea is formulated, one has to visualize where the money is going to come from. Many of the schemes of the government are just have the scheme, fund will come later. It doesn't work that way. The money may not be immediately available, but over a period of time it can be made available. But this thought has to be there while formulating the scheme. You can't be oblivious of the financial implications of what you're doing and say, it's a great idea. So have that in your mind as you derive it. But there are some cases where if the idea itself is good, then the money will flow in. I'll give you an example. I did this scheme called Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, the health insurance scheme which has now moved into Ayushman Bharat. First 2 years I had a lot of problems. But once we demonstrated the efficacy of the scheme in a particular state, I distinctly remember the Joint Secretary Budget used to call me one day before the budget and ask me, sir, how much do you want for the scheme? And the number that I wanted, I got it every year. So it's a question of how bright, how brilliant, how successful is your idea. You have to demonstrate the efficacy. Just the ideas don't travel much.
Greetings to you, sir. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just want to ask you one thing. There was a printing of 3 lines in the earlier textbooks of our Tamil Nadu government that untouchability is sin, untouchability is crime, and untouchability is inhuman. Now it has been drastically reduced. Untouchability is not there much. Even the first lady of our subcontinent is from a tribal community, which you know that very much. Can you please come across one thought that to the student community, let not you be addicted to drugs, let not you be addicted to alcohol, let not you be addicted to corruption, let not you be addicted to sexual immorality, like that any thought will come inside your mind to put it across the country, irrespective of the states, and in their own vernacular, it can be printed so that it will also be coming down to a drastic level. Thank you so much, sir.
See, I must confess that I'm not a man of letters. I do not have too much knowledge. I have a bit of experience. And from my experience, what I can say is, don't go in for too many ideas. I mean, as I keep saying, there are too many ideas happening. Look at small things and try and do that. For example, if I can demonstrate the efficacy of being good to you without telling you that you should be good, then the chances are that you would be good. You know, unfortunately, what is happening is, what is being demonstrated is that the dishonest is thriving and the honest people are suffering, which is absolutely wrong. There are so many honest people who are actually thriving, who are doing very well in life, but we don't present them. Again, since we like masala, we like how many IAS officers have gone to jail, we point them. Yes, indeed, they are corrupt, they went to jail. But there are so many IAS officers, some of them are sitting here, who performed so wonderfully well, we don't even talk about them. So why should we do that? How about presenting the case of honest and efficient officers, whether in the police, whether in the IAS, so that the youngsters start believing that honest and efficient also thrive in the society. We don't do that. It's easier, it's not very difficult. Because I'm not discussing idea, I'll say, look at this officer. He's performed so well, he's been honest, and he's enjoying life. You know, normally we would believe that all honest officers are being beaten, they're living a miserable life. It's not so. I mean, I was fortunate to belong to a batch where people have done wonderfully, they're very honest, they're living a wonderful life, but they're not talked about sufficiently. I think we should talk about them to demonstrate that honesty pays, actually pays.
Good evening, sir. Ishani here. I've got rank 79 this year, and ANIL SWARUP sir had actually helped me a lot in my interview preparation this year and the last year as well. Thank you so much, sir.
I'm so glad you're here.
And this year I've got into the Indian Police Services, so I thought I'd come today and see if IPS, sir, according to you, comes in the way of getting things done in the government. Do you see at the ground level a tussle between the two services, or what role can, between IAS and the IPS, sir, what role can an IPS officer play in policy making or just improving the society and everything in general, sir?
You know, each service has a very important role to play in the society. Each service. I mean, there's no reason for any conflict because roles are fairly clearly defined. And if you do your job, then you will be able to deliver a lot many things. The problem arises when we are more concerned about others, what he is doing, not on myself. Instead of defining your role, your own role, you start thinking in terms of others' role. You become critical of others. Instead of doing that, you understand what your role. You know, I have often said, if you focus on what you can, then that can will grow. But if you waste your time on what you can't, then you will keep blaming others. Let me narrate an incident to you because earlier I was in the police, and since my batchmate is sitting here, two police batchmates are sitting here, probably I don't know whether I narrated this incident to them ever. One day at the police academy, and I won't name that officer who came to me, you all can guess. He came to me and said, boss, I'm unable to sleep in the night. I said, what happened? Boss, petroleum prices are going up. I said, petroleum prices are going up, but by your not sleeping in the night, will it come down? No, boss, the economic situation of the country is getting impacted. I said, that's also true, but how does it relate to you not sleeping in the night? You know, in UP, we call them Mr. Pareshan. I mean, people who are only hassled, they don't do anything. So we had a long debate, after which he agreed with me. He said, yes, whether I sleep in the night. I told him, we must discuss this. You must be concerned about it, but don't spend sleepless nights. Spend sleepless nights over issues over which you have control. So he went away. 3 months down the line, he comes again. I said, and then he tells me, boss, I'm unable to sleep in the night. I said, what happened? Petroleum prices have come down without your intervention? No, boss, India's population is going up. I said, you sleep in the night, population will come down on its own. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, and I told him very clearly, and I tell this to all youngsters, don't get hassled about who's winning the national election. You know, the national election is a time when everyone is fighting with each other. At best, you have a vote, you can canvass. If you're not in service, don't do that while in service. You can canvass otherwise. But why do you fight with people? I mean, I see people fighting with each other. Why? You know, I learned it in a different manner. You know, I used to get very agitated when getting stuck in the traffic jam. So one day my wife was traveling with me. So we got stuck in a traffic jam. I got agitated. I don't have much hair now, but I'll be asked to tear my hair. So she said, "What's happened?" I said, "This is too bad traffic." She asked me, "Can you do something about it?" I said, "What can I do about it?" Then she said, "Arey, kuch kar nahi sakte, na khoon kyun khala rahe ho? Why are you unnecessarily hassled when you can't do? Just take it easy, listen to music." And I think that's the point. So we are too bothered about others. And everyone seems to be bothered about nation these days, Josh. In Delhi, we have a lot of Josh without hosh. So everyone is hassled about others. Focus on yourself. And I can assure you as a police officer, you will have so much to do. And you can derive so much satisfaction. You will get so much recognition for doing what you're doing rather than get hassled about others. Huge amount of things that you do. We don't realize, many civil servants blame the politicians, and I've said that in my book also, for their inability to do things. So I tell them, has any politician asked you to come late to the office? No, why do you come late to the office? At least in my part of the world, many officers come late to the office. Then I ask him, why do you keep your office so dirty? Some keep them well, but you don't. Has any politician asked you to do that? No. Then why do you do that? Then why do you speak in a manner that you do to your visitors, which you shouldn't be speaking? Has any politician told you to behave in that manner to people who come to meet you? No. Why do you do that? So if you go on and on, you will discover 90% of the cases, politicians don't have to do anything. This is true of any relationship. If you look at the positives of a relationship and build on that, that can will grow, as I keep saying. So focus on what you can and you'll discover for yourself. I don't have to tell you what you got to do, you'll discover it for yourself.
Thank you. One more question.
Good evening, sir. I am Afifa. My question is somehow related to social perspective. Actually, I've been waiting to ask this question when I finally meet any IAS officers. Actually, I had studied in Delhi. Even I have met many Bihar friends, all of them. Even I went to Bihar along with them for roaming. So even in Delhi and UP, all those things, we can find child laborers as well as many people who are migrants. And right now, just now I Googled it, most of the IAS officers are hailing from Bihar and UP. But why the situation hasn't changed yet? So this is my question. The second question is that if we open Instagram, there is a fan page for IAS officers right now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. Actually, fan pages. So while looking at that, personally, I felt like there would be some sort of degradation in the moral value, they are playing songs and they are demonstrating according to that song. So what do you think, the moral value, the morality which has changed the officers of past as right now?
No, let me answer the second question first. I don't think there is anything immoral about people singing or dancing. Is there anything immoral? I think they should sing and dance. I have always believed while in service, people ask me, you started creating your own music. I said, instead of facing it, I create my own. So there's no harm in it. So there's no harm in dancing, provided it's not vulgar. But there's no harm. I mean, I used to sing when I was in service. I mean, that's best way to relax if you can sing. Nothing like it. So I nothing wrong with that. Second, your first question, things have changed quite a lot in UP. I don't know about Bihar. UP I've seen. And I can compare it with when I got into the service and later on. There is definitely scope for improvement. Definitely, I totally agree with you on that front. But things have changed quite dramatically. And how I tell you that? Because thanks to Mr. Modi, when I became Secretary Government of India, he had asked all the secretaries to go to their first place of posting. And when I went there, I was aghast with the change, pleasantly. I saw hordes of girls riding on a bicycle going to school. Unthinkable when I joined the service. Lots of them singing. They were happily going to the school. So I agree with you, lot more needs to be done. I think the roads have changed dramatically. I mean, I used to take hours to drive from one place to the other. Now roads have improved, housing has improved, water availability has improved. But I totally agree with you. There's so many things that still need to be done and so much to learn from each other. I keep telling them that each state can learn from the other state. You don't have to learn from England, Finland. There's so many good things that are happening in southern part of the country. We can learn. So we have to learn from each other. I look at it positively. Because things have changed, they can change further. Had they not changed, I would have given up. I'm not cynical. I do believe that they can change because they have changed. Probably the pace has to be strong, longer.
Just one more question from a 90-year.
So in foreign countries, the health and life insurance are made compulsory. But why it is not followed in India, sir?
There are many reasons why it has happened. There's so many things that have happened in other countries. If you look at the entire spectrum of political acceptability, social desirability, financial viability, I think one place where we get stuck is the financial viability part of it. You know, when this Ayushman Bharat was being discussed at the Prime Minister's level, I had done some back of the envelope calculation, because when Prime Minister agreed that we should have health insurance, my next suggestion to the Prime Minister was, sir, universalize it. Do it for everyone. And the amount that I had calculated, I may be wrong, was about 20,000 crore. In the national context, it was not much. And Prime Minister agreed. So the then Finance Minister Arun Jaitley rightly said, he said, sir, let us start with this segment of the society and then we'll extend it. My belief is that they're going to extend it. And it's gradually being extended to other categories. I'm hopeful that over a period of time, we will have health insurance for all the people in the country. But look at where we were. At the beginning of this century in 2000, 2001, 2002, I remember, only about 5 to 6% had health coverage. Today, more than 35% have health coverage. So, 5-fold, 7-fold increase. So it's increasing as I answered to her. A lot more needs to be done, but we are moving in the right direction. I am hopeful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I request, it's not always very easy to ask questions. Answering questions, yes, and for a man of such a caliber, definitely yes. But asking questions, we need to clap for those who asked those 5-6 questions. And can you please come on stage, all 6 of you, those who ask questions, please come on stage. The Anna Centenary Library will honor you. You will get something from the guest of today. Please come in front. Nivedita, she is an UPSC aspirant who is a regular at ACI. Mr. Srinivas, he is also a regular at ACL, attends all the TN talks without fail, and also is there at the library from I think 9 to 5 every day. Afifa, we have a lawyer today asking questions. Afifa. Mr. Saranga, another regular at the library. Nishani, an IPS officer. A leader leads by example, not by force. Her actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, read more. Our librarian, Chief Information Officer, will now felicitate our resource person of today, Mr. ANIL SWARUP. Whenever administrators come together with collective intention, it's powerful and magic happens. This evening was magic, sheer magic, that has brought all our administrative officers of the past here today, and the present, our IPS officer too. The most powerful, and they are the most powerful forces that have made India what it is today. I request all of you to please come on stage so that we can have a photograph together to create memories. Can we give them a huge round of applause, please? Thank you, each and every one of you, for making this evening magical.